when it comes to the United States, the right, it does not have a great future because the American right has no coherent vision. And as the Hebrew Bible says, where there is no vision, the people perish. So I think that America, it's hard to have any kind of vision for it today. On the basis of some sort of tradition amongst its people, because there are so many parallel societies in today's America that, like I said, there's no common American identity nowadays. And the left succeeds, I would say, because it's constantly driving for change, and the people who want this change are ideologically committed to it. So much so that it basically defines who they are as people. Their identity is based upon their politics, and you can't really. So for them, there's nothing that's apolitical. Everything is political. That's definitely something that is a sharp dividing line between the left and the right in the U.S. The right tends not to be as political as the left, and the left has political fanatics who are devoted to their activism basically at any cost.
Yeah, so I don't think vision's nearly important, as you say. I think right or left wing political orientations are, evolutionary adaptations to changing circumstances. So people have instincts. They don't need a political philosophy. I love political philosophy, but people don't need a political philosophy. People just have an instinct. For example, if they see, dog feces on the sidewalk, the more that bothers them, the more likely they are to be right wing. The more that their room is kept neat and tidy, the more likely they are to be right wing. The more people eat out at different restaurants and are open to trying new foods, the more likely they are left wing. So we just have these adaptations to circumstances which are constantly changing. So I mean, none of us realized that COVID was coming. We may very well be on the edge of a nuclear exchange with Russia, which would make everything else we're talking about, kind of irrelevant. And I do think there is American identity. It's not as clear as it was, say, 60 years ago, but there was a terrific teaching company course called American Identity. And from the time of the American Revolution, prior to the American Revolution, Americans have had a self-consciousness. They think of their nation as representing something unique in the history of the world. One major difference that I see between the American identity and British and Australian identity is there's much more of a can-do attitude. Are you an American can or an American can't? So when I watch British and Australian drama, there's much more of a sense of fatalism. Fatalism is not part of American identity. There's this sense in America that, yeah, we can do it. We can conquer. There's this, tremendous faith in political democracy, in education. There's an anti-fatalist outlook. There's this belief that material and moral progress is possible. There's tremendous faith in the benefits of education. There's an eagerness to live up to national ideals. There's a belief that individual economic exertion will generate wealth and material development. So the inventiveness of Americans, the adaptability, the pragmatism of Americans is what Daniel Borstein would write about. The energetic approach to solving problems, the faith in human equality, belief in the boundless possibilities of economic growth, making education available to every citizen. Americans tend to have very high expectations for progress, and Americans tend to be really into self-help, far more than almost any other country. Americans tend to be constantly striving to improve themselves in their societies. Americans work harder. America is full of workaholics. In Australia, everybody gets a minimum of 4 weeks holiday a year, minimum. So Americans, yeah, they're not fatalistic. If something's wrong, they feel like they can solve it. They're pragmatic. They excelled in irregular warfare and ingenious military improvisation in the first 2 centuries of the country. They've tended to have an intense pride in their own country, much more demonstrative than many other nations. Highly self-critical. Americans have tended to be highly self-critical. Tremendous amount of religious innovation in America. America, for the last 80 years, has led the world in scientific research. America, since the 1880s, has been the richest country in the world. And Americans are always coming up with new devices and trying to put them to profitable use. So the stereotype of the shrewd Yankee businessman who knows how to drive a bargain, that's still with us. Pass.
I think that the American identity you refer to certainly was true, although today I don't think there is this spirit of innovation, the can-do attitude that still characterizes the country on the whole. Now, it characterizes certain parts of the country, particularly the Intermountain West, places like that, no question. But the country on the whole today, I don't think it does. I think that today, certainly the identity that you refer to is part of American history. And it was, I can't say that what you said is wrong if it's applied to that history. But today, particularly over the last 30 years, especially since the year 2000, since the 2000 election, then accelerated since 9/11, the things here have been much more fatalistic and pessimistic. And the old American can do spirit still exists, but in pockets. I'm not going to say it's not there. But if it exists in pockets, then it really can't be a national identity. It's one identity among many. Today, looking at America, a lot of people say, I hate this country or I love this country. I say I'm indifferent to this country on the whole because I don't want to overgeneralize and say this country is good or bad by my perception. Parts of it I like, parts of it I absolutely dislike. And as a result of that, I look at America in the same way that someone from the EU would look at Europe. Someone from Stockholm and someone from Palermo don't have a hell of a lot in common with each other, but they're still part of the same political superstructure, the EU. Someone such as me from Central Florida, and someone from Seattle, and someone from Calexico, and someone from Fort Kent, where they speak French generally, and someone from Chicago don't have a lot in common with each other, but we're still part of the same political superstructure.